ND is a new name in the IEM world, which has been released since last year. And I have seen quite a few of IEM coming from them. But what I have in my hand right now is the X12, the latest offering from ND, which is essentially their flagship model. So priced at 46 US dollar, as you can see here on AngelDac AliExpress store. This is something which I would consider as quite a bargain, considering that if you look at this ND X12, it is entirely built on CNC machine aluminum, and most importantly, what's you're gonna get inside. This is a 6-driver hybrid IEM, okay, offering deep switches some more on top of it. So what you're gonna have inside is that one dynamic driver, 10 mm, and 5 different type of balance armature positioned differently. So let's just have a look here at the build and the construction itself. As you would notice that my X12 here is using this blue cable. This is not the stock cable. It comes with this microphone type, normal SPC type of cable, which I am not using right now, and I will explain why. But let's just talk about the tuning switches itself. So what you're gonna get here, as you would see that you're gonna have these 3 deep switches, on off position, all 3 of them, so that you can have different type of tuning. So what are the tuning? So let's just quickly have a look at the configuration of the tuning itself. Okay, let me just bring this up. Okay, the tuning switches designated as position 1, you can set it as off on, which is essentially something that they will consider as shocking low frequency. Essentially what it means is that it boosts the lower frequency. And then there's the second switches, which offer a bit higher, lower impedance actually, which is on, off and on. And if you look at the graph itself, it definitely says as how it looked like. Focus a bit more on the lower frequency and high frequency and suppression of the mid-range. So it is a very strong V sound profile for that position of switch. And also the last one being on and off. So this is for treble head. If you love high frequency energy and love treble, this is the kind of setting that you use. And also the last position will be everything off, which is basically what I would consider as a default position for this X12. Okay, so now I would like to clarify that, after testing this X12 for a while, I actually stuck with this position number 1, which is off, on, and on. And there's a reason for it. Because let's just talk about sound and performance of this X12. Okay, first, this is a hybrid, as I noted earlier. And if you know anything about hybrid, the first thing that comes into mind is that how coherent is the sound. I am happy to say that despite having, so many driver per side, anything above 3 driver per side is considered so many. This X12 sounded coherent to my ears. The tuning itself, does not sound out of sync between the 5 driver to work with each other. But let me just put it this way in the simplest term. If you are looking for IEM, which you would consider as safe tuning, then this is definitely not the IEM for you, because one of the main character for this X12 is that it sounded bold, strong, prominent, and then very frontal. Okay, so let's just dig a bit more on that. First, the way it presents some of the dynamic range. Let's talk about the upper frequency itself. For example, if I subject this X12, especially in stock condition, using stock tips and using stock cable, the sort of sound which I am hearing is something which I would consider as very aggressive, all right? Especially when we talk about the PINA region. And what is PINA region? PINA region is essentially the upper mid-range all the way to the treble region. So, for example, if I subject this to some music which contains a lot of percussion or a lot of high-pitched guitar notes, which is especially E minor guitar notes, if you listen to some rock or metal music, then what I'm hearing is some very strong emphasis on that particular section of the mid-range. And for example, if I subject it to listening to soprano music, soprano vocal, like Alison Krauss, her high-pitched vocal would be emphasized. And there's a two-way looking at it. Okay, if you are a treble head, like I mentioned, especially if you use a position which emphasizes on treble, then this can be quite a bit of overbearing. But throughout my usage, I have tested several switches, and that is why I stuck with the position number 1, which means that I boosted everything except the high frequency. And what I'm hearing after that, especially when pairing it with this KZ foam tips and also this copper cable, which is Nichek or FC here, all right, the sort of sound which I'm hearing is a lot more balanced now. It is definitely suddenly all the offensiveness in the upper range, especially anyway from the Pina region, is all gone now. So it is in fact something which I can really enjoy even when listening to metal music. On the other hand, on the bright side, or should I say on the positive side of it, this X12 is exceedingly suitable for listening to certain type of instrumental music. If you listen to classical, Vivaldi, or even technical jazz, or even Diana Krall, some of the most technical sort of recording and mastering, this X12 would be able to extract all sort of micro and macro details. If you love details, then this X12 is the one to look for. Let's talk about the rest of the sound frequency, the mid-range itself. The good thing about this X12 is that it is transparent to a point that I would even consider it is suitable for monitoring purposes, because there's accuracy on the way it presents the mid-range itself. For example, the sort, all type of vocal which I listen to, especially with this kind of configuration that I have in my hand right now with this cable and this ear tip, all right, there's no hint of coloration to the vocal itself, to the sound of the instrument. Like violin sounded like violin, harpsichord sounded like harpsichord, and especially piano. If you love piano type of music, then this X12 will exhibit it in the most clean and pristine sound that I am hearing, which is comparable to higher end IEM. And let's talk about the lower frequency. And as noted earlier, you can practically tune the sort of sound that you can get from this X12. For example, if you set the dip switches to bass enhancing sort of position, which is the position which I like, which is position number 1, everything, all the lower frequency on and off on the treble, then the bass itself is prominent more on the mid bass rather than the sub bass. So what I'm trying to say is that if you love mid bass, all right, you're gonna love this X12. But if you prefer the Harman sort of bass presentation, probably this is not so suitable for you, because the sub bass would appear slightly roll off with the decay itself, sound stage and spatial imaging staging itself. I would definitely say that with the kind of setup which I have right now, with this ear tip and with this cable that I'm using, and especially when attached to this FIO BTR15 here, which I use quite a lot, something which is natively wide sounding, this X12 is impressively wide and open sounding. Yes, you are hearing it right. So it is definitely suitable for listening to orchestra type of music, or if you just simply like wide open soundstage. It is also surprisingly, being a hybrid, or perhaps not surprisingly, very suitable for gaming, because it excels really well at pinpointing different type of sources, layering, separation, and everything. Macro detail is very well defined, so does the micro detail. So if you play FPS type of gaming, this is one of the IEM to look for. Bear in mind, whatever that you are seeing on screen right now is not all of them, but if you look at X12 itself on its own, especially with the kind of setup which I have used, changing the cable and the ear tip itself, definitely I would say that X12 is a very solid offering, considering the price is just 46 US dollar. But it is definitely not an IM for everyone. It is not an IM for people who look for safe tuning, or if you are sensitive to treble. But if you love bold presentation, strong presentation, good with macro detail and micro detail, definitely X12 is one of the IM to look for.